The helicopter slammed into the desert dirt like a weapon hitting ground. Dust exploded across the road. Windows shook. The roar swallowed the silence whole. Inside, Eleanor Brooks froze. The man in front removed his sunglasses. "Ms. Brooks," he said, "do you remember a boy you let sleep inside a gas station in 1995? Her breath vanished. Before she could answer, he added one detail. He was 17, homeless, carried a violin in a broken case. 30 years disappeared in a single sentence. The man opened a leather folder. Inside was a photograph. A packed concert hall, blinding lights, and a man holding a violin like it was part of his body. "That boy," the man said, "changed music forever." Eleanor stared at the photo. "That's impossible," she whispered. The man met her eyes. "He wrote about you. Let's get started." The three men moved with deliberate precision, boots crunching against the gravel. Eleanor's small house, faded and fragile, seemed suddenly exposed under their presence. No introductions, no explanations, just authority. Her mind raced through every possible scenario. Eviction, some legal nightmare, a past debt she didn't even remember. They didn't glance at the peeling paint or the broken fence. They went straight to the front door, as if they already knew every inch of the house. Eleanor's fingers trembled on the doorknob. The air thickened with tension, a silent warning she couldn't ignore. The tallest man's voice broke the quiet. "Miss Brooks, we need to speak with you immediately." Her heart skipped. Is this about eviction or something far worse? The man removed his sunglasses slowly, like peeling away decades of dust from a forgotten memory. "Miss Brooks," he said, voice calm but weighty, "do you remember the summer of 1995? The question struck Eleanor like a hammer. 1995, a year she hadn't thought about in nearly 30 years. Before she could form words, he added, "A teenage boy, hitchhiking, carrying a violin in a broken case." Her chest tightened. Memories she had locked away, fragments of a dusty gas station, late nights, quiet music, collided all at once. A floodgate opened, disorienting and sharp. 30 years of ordinary life evaporated in a heartbeat. How could something from decades ago still matter now? The men stepped inside, and Eleanor's living room felt suddenly suffocating. The sagging couch, the threadbare carpet, the flickering light overhead, all of it shrank under their presence. They didn't sit, they didn't fidget. They stood like judges in a courtroom, their polished shoes echoing against the wooden floor. The lead man opened a leather folder, flipping it with the precision of someone used to controlling outcomes. "We've been searching for you for nearly 3 years," he said, voice measured, "for something very specific, about a boy you helped decades ago." Eleanor's stomach twisted. Every instinct screamed to back away, to protect what little privacy she had left. Her hands gripped the edge of the counter like a lifeline. What are they about to reveal? The tallest man's voice broke the quiet. "Ms. Brooks, we need to speak with you immediately." Her heart skipped. Is this about eviction or something far worse? In 1995, Eleanor Brooks's life felt like a slow, unrelenting grind. She was 39, working nights at a gas station on the edge of the desert, counting each dollar with painstaking care. Her marriage had ended quietly, her daughter was living in another state, and phone calls came less and less each year. Most nights she returned to an empty house, where silence pressed against the walls like a living thing. Her days blurred together, stocking shelves, cleaning floors, answering the occasional customer. The heat in July pressed against the windows, thick and suffocating, making every chore feel like a battle. She moved through her life mechanically, surviving but barely thriving. Something was missing, and she didn't yet know that it was about to arrive, sweeping through her world in a way she would never forget. Something is coming that will change everything. The bell above the gas station door jingled, but the sound was swallowed by the heavy desert night. Eleanor looked up. A boy stood there, thin, exhausted, every inch the definition of someone life had beaten down. His clothes were torn, faded, and soaked with sweat. Across his back was a violin case held together with duct tape, battered but sacred in his grip. I can work," he said quickly, voice tight. "Anything, just food, please." Eleanor froze. Every logical part of her mind screamed, "Turn him away, call someone, don't get involved." Yet something in the boy's eyes, the tired, raw desperation, pushed her forward. She grabbed a bottle of water, set it on the counter, and said, "Sit down." The relief in his face was almost visible. One night, he said. That was all he asked. One night of safety. But Eleanor couldn't know that the choice she made in that moment would echo through the next 30 decades of her life. Will she help or protect herself? The boy's name was Daniel, 17, alone, carrying nothing but a battered violin and the weight of foster care behind him. "Just one night," he said. "I'll leave in the morning." Eleanor looked at the clock, then at the small storage room behind the gas station. One night, that was all. Logic screamed no. Safety screamed no. Every warning she had built into 39 years of survival whispered in her ear, "Don't do it." Yet something older, sharper than fear, moved her. "One night," she repeated, voice firm. Daniel's shoulders relaxed. That night became another, then another. Days stretched into weeks, and Eleanor kept telling herself it was temporary. Temporary things don't usually echo for decades. Every meal she made, every word she spoke carried weight she didn't yet understand. A small act, feeding him, letting him stay, felt inconsequential, but it was already changing the trajectory of both their lives. This kindness will cost something. What? Daniel fell into the rhythm of the gas station. He cleaned floors without being asked, fixed broken shelves, patched leaky faucets. At night, when the last customer left and the neon lights buzzed faintly, he opened his violin case and played. Not for anyone, just for the empty air. Eleanor listened while counting receipts or wiping counters. The melodies filled corners of the station she hadn't realized were hollow. The melodies were soft, tentative, yet carried a depth that made her pulse hitch. She found herself looking forward to those hours, anticipating the quiet companionship, the unspoken understanding between two people surviving life's cracks. It became routine. Night after night they occupied the same space, bridging the gap between isolation and connection. Eleanor's world, once claustrophobic and silent, slowly stretched around the boy's presence. Yet she knew, instinctively, this peace couldn't last forever. This can't last forever. One night, Eleanor finally spoke. "I lost my son 2 years ago," she admitted, voice barely above a whisper. The words hung between them, heavy, unyielding. Daniel froze, his bow suspended midair, as if the revelation had pressed pause on everything. Silence stretched. Not the awkward silence of strangers, but the kind that exists only when grief is mirrored. Daniel's shoulders slumped. I lost my mom when I was 10, he said, barely audible, the violin resting against his chest. Foster homes. I've been on my own since then. The connection was immediate and raw. Shared loss bound them, forming a fragile trust. Both carried invisible weights, yet here, in this dimly lit gas station, they recognized pieces of themselves in the other. This connection will change something. Daniel's fingers hovered over the violin, but he wasn't playing. He was scribbling frantically on scraps of paper, crumpled and scattered across the counter. I can't get it right. The music, the words, they don't match what I feel." Eleanor watched him, silent, letting him struggle. Then she spoke, calm but resolute. "The people we lose, they stay with us, not in photographs, not in memories, in how we move through the world, in the kindness we give, even when it seems small. He paused, pen hovering. The words were simple, almost insignificant, yet they hit him with the force of truth. He copied them onto the napkin, word for word. Those lines, whispered across a dusty counter, became the seed for something larger than either of them could yet imagine. These words will return later. 3 nights later, Daniel was gone. No note, no warning, just an empty storage room and the faint scent of worn leather from his violin case. Eleanor's chest tightened as she scanned the counter, the floor, the tiny table where he had scribbled endlessly. Nothing remained but crumpled scraps of paper, some with half-formed melodies, others with words she had spoken. Her heart sank. Had any of it mattered? The boy who had shared grief, loneliness, and music with her vanished as suddenly as he appeared, leaving behind only the echoes of what could have been. The silence stretched too long. Eleanor realized something terrifying. They weren't threatening her anymore. They were waiting for her to understand. The man who hadn't spoken yet stepped forward, older than the rest. His suit wasn't sharper, it was heavier, like it carried history. "You keep thinking we're here to take something from you," he said calmly. He placed a single document on the table, not slid, not tossed, placed. "We're here because something was left to you." Eleanor stared at the paper. Her name was printed at the top. Full name, correct spelling, no mistakes. "That's impossible," she said. "I don't know anyone like that." The man opened the folder himself. Inside wasn't money. It was a program. A concert program, aged and creased. The year was printed in bold. 1995. Her throat tightened. "You won't find your name in bold," the man said. He didn't want it public. He turned the page. A handwritten note, scanned and preserved. "For the woman who let me sleep when no one else would." Eleanor's hands flew to her mouth. "No, that was nothing. I just—" The man cut her off. He wrote 37 versions of that note, tried to remove it, couldn't. The first man spoke again, quieter now. He kept records, journals, interviews, letters. He mentioned one place more than any other. He looked at her. A gas station, winter, a woman who didn't ask his name. Eleanor's knees weakened. "That boy," the older man continued, "went on to become one of the most influential violinists of his generation." He paused, deliberate. "And before he died, he told us to find you." Eleanor's head snapped up. "Died?" The room didn't answer immediately. That told her everything. He didn't want fame connected to you. He wanted truth. Another document was placed on the table, this one thicker, legal. "This," the man said, "connects you to everything he built." Eleanor stared at it, terrified to touch it. "And this," the man finished, "is why we had to find you before anyone else could." The folder remained open, waiting. The word death still hovered in the room, unsaid but immovable. Eleanor finally sat. Her legs no longer trusted her. "When?" she asked. No one rushed to answer. That hesitation told her more than the words ever could. 6 months ago, the older man said. "Vienna, final rehearsal." Eleanor swallowed hard. "Was he alone?" The man shook his head. No, he never was after a certain point. That didn't make it better. She pressed her palm to the table, grounding herself. "Did he ever come back to the station?" The men went still. The younger one spoke carefully. "Twice." Her head snapped up. "Once in 2004, once in 2011. Her chest tightened. "I was there." "We know. Different shifts, different hours." The weight of the near miss settled heavy between them. He waited, longer than anyone realized. Her voice cracked. "Why didn't he leave a name?" "Because he was afraid that it would turn gratitude into obligation." She laughed once, sharp, broken. "That sounds like him." None of them asked how she knew. He didn't want a reunion. He wanted peace. Another pause. And he knew, the man added, that if he met you again, he might never leave. The room blurred. So all of this, and I don't even get to say goodbye? The older man lowered his gaze. He said you already did. That night. Eleanor closed her eyes. The wind didn't feel like a win. It felt like a door that finally opened, only to show what was gone behind it. The older man waited until Eleanor's breathing slowed. Then he reached into the inner pocket of his jacket. This time, there was no folder, no stamp, no seal, no legal weight. Just an envelope. Cream-colored, soft at the edges. Handwritten. Her name. Not typed, not printed. Written the way someone writes when they're afraid the letters might disappear. This, the man said quietly, was never meant for a lawyer. Eleanor didn't move. I can't, she whispered. You don't have to read it now, he replied. But you should know what it is. He placed the envelope on the table. Not centered, not aligned, as if even he didn't want to control where it landed. He wrote it 3 months before he died, after his last tour was canceled. Eleanor stared at the handwriting. Her chest ached in a way that felt old. He asked us to promise something, the younger man added. She looked up. What? He said that the words would do that themselves. The room went quiet again. Finally, Eleanor reached out. Her fingers hovered over the envelope, shaking. I don't deserve this, she said. The older man shook his head slowly. That sentence is the first thing he wrote. Her hand froze. He crossed it out, then wrote it again, then crossed it out again. Eleanor swallowed. What did he leave? The man opened his mouth, then stopped. Instead, he nodded toward the envelope. She took it. It was lighter than she expected. That scared her. Carefully, she slid a finger beneath the flap. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded once, creased from being held too many times. Her eyes found the first line, and her breath broke. You never asked my name. That saved me. Eleanor gasped softly. The men didn't look away. If you're reading this, it means I didn't make it back to you in time. Her vision blurred. I tried. I stood outside that station twice, watched the door, left. A tear fell onto the paper. You fed me when I was invisible. You listened when I had nothing worth saying yet. She covered her mouth. People clap now. They stand. They shout my name. Her hands trembled harder. But they don't know the night I almost didn't survive, and they don't need to. She inhaled sharply. You told me something that night you probably forgot. Her heart pounded. You said, stay warm. Tomorrow matters. Eleanor sobbed. I don't remember saying that, she whispered. He did, the older man said softly. She kept reading. I carried those words into rooms you'll never see, into halls built for kings. Her shoulders shook. Every time I wanted to quit, I thought about the woman who didn't treat me like a problem. The letter blurred completely now. I didn't come back because I was afraid you'd see what I became and think you deserved credit. She let out a broken laugh through tears. You do. The final lines were written darker, pressed harder. So I left you what I couldn't give you in person. Proof that one night mattered. Eleanor folded the paper to her chest. The men stayed silent. They knew this wasn't their moment. After a long time, Eleanor looked up. What am I supposed to do with this? The older man answered carefully. That, he said, is the only thing he didn't decide for you. The envelope lay open, empty, but the room felt full. The envelope stayed in Eleanor's hands long after the words were finished. The men waited, not because they had to, but because they knew this part couldn't be rushed. Finally, Eleanor spoke. "What happens," she asked quietly, "if I say no?" The younger man answered first. "Then everything goes back into holding. The trust remains sealed. The rights stay dormant." "And the money?" she asked. "It grows, unused, untouched." She nodded once. "So I could walk away?" "Yes," the older man said, "completely." Eleanor looked down at the letter again. Proof that one night mattered. She exhaled slowly. "Then I won't." All three men straightened slightly. "I don't want my name on buildings. I don't want interviews. I don't want people knocking on this door." The older man listened carefully. "What do you want?" She thought of cold nights, of coffee poured too late, of people pretending not to see. "I want it to go where it would have gone if he'd never made it back," she said. The younger man frowned. "You mean kids like him," Eleanor said firmly, "before someone tells them tomorrow matters." Silence again. Different now. Purpose-filled. "There's already a foundation draft," the older man said slowly. "He outlined it, but never activated it." Eleanor met his eyes. "Then activate it." She slid the letter back into the envelope. "Music programs," she added. "Shelters. Places that don't ask questions first." The men nodded. "And one more thing," Eleanor said. They waited. "No names," she said. "No plaques. No stories about me." The older man smiled, just slightly. "That," he said, "is exactly what he asked for." Eleanor closed her eyes. For the first time since the helicopter arrived, the noise inside her stopped. The men stood to leave. Not abruptly. Not ceremonially. Like their purpose had finally been fulfilled. The older man paused at the door. "One last thing," he said. He reached into his jacket and removed a small object. Not paper. Not a document. A violin string. Darkened with age. Coiled carefully. "He carried this for years," the man said. "Snapped the night before his first audition." Eleanor stared at it. "He said it reminded him," the man continued, "that survival comes before perfection." He placed it on the counter beside the envelope. Then they were gone. No speeches. No warnings. The sound of their footsteps faded. The world returned to its normal volume. Eleanor stood alone in the quiet house. She walked to the window. The desert road was empty again, as if nothing had happened. She turned back to the counter. The letter. The string. She picked up the violin string and wrapped it gently around the envelope. Outside, a car passed. Inside, something settled. That night, Eleanor drove. Past the gas station. Past the road where Winter once lived. She stopped at a small community center. A handwritten sign taped to the door. Music night. All welcome. She sat in the back. Listened. Watched a teenage boy struggle through a song. Hands shaking. Case cracked. No one clapped. Eleanor did. Just once. The boy looked up. And for a moment, 30 years collapsed into nothing. Eleanor never told anyone her story. Not the cashier who worked nights now. Not the kids at the center. Not the man who fixed her roof that spring. Life didn't change loudly. It changed sideways. A new heater appeared in the shelter one winter. An instrument closet stopped locking its door. A foundation name no one recognized quietly paid fees, bought strings, filled gaps. No plaques, no interviews. just fewer nights where someone slept cold. Sometimes Eleanor sat in the back of the room and listened. She didn't watch for talent. She watched for the ones who almost left. And when one stayed, just one more song, one more night, she felt it again. That same quiet proof. Years later, when people spoke about the violinist, they talked about genius, about discipline, about destiny. They never talked about a gas station, or a woman who didn't ask questions, or a sentence said without thinking. Tomorrow matters. Eleanor still kept the letter in her kitchen drawer. Not framed, not protected, folded, handled. Because some stories aren't meant to be displayed. They're meant to be repeated, one small decision at a time. And somewhere, tonight, a door stayed open. That was enough.